Is ABA therapy the right choice for your autistic child? Today, I had an amazing talk with Rebecca Shellito. She is a nurse, a mom, a wife to a wonderful son, Nico. I got to know Rebecca through Help Me Find My Voice, our signature autism course. She took that course shortly after Nico was diagnosed with autism. And she talks with us about how she was worried about Nico at age 1 because he wasn't really talking, and how she talked with her pediatrician, and how the pediatrician recommended applied behavior analysis after she got an autism diagnosis. And we talk about what that was like. How did she find an ABA provider? How did she find that ABA was the right choice for her and Nico? We talk about how Nico was in ABA for 5 years and how now he is in a public school and he divides his time between some specialized instruction and general education classes. He is doing an amazing job. We also talk about how Rebecca took Help Me Find My Voice and how she learned so much about how to help her son. She learned about the field of applied behavior analysis, and it helped her feel really, really confident when she was talking with Nico's therapist and just across his journey with all of his therapies. This is an amazing and inspirational journey today that we share with you. And Rebecca is doing amazing work. She has started a nonprofit called uniquelynico.com, and she's really supporting families. I can't wait for you to hear more about Rebecca, Nico, and her family's autism journey today.
You're listening to Autism Outreach Podcast, a podcast full of ready-to-use strategies to help those with autism strengthen their communication skills. Here's your host, Rose Griffin of ABA Speech, a speech therapist and board-certified behavior analyst who shares tips you can use in your next therapy session.
Thanks so much for joining us on episode 55 of the Autism Outreach Podcast. We have an amazing episode today, one I'm really excited about. We have with us Rebecca Shellito. It's so nice to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I think the way that we were connected, we were talking just a second ago before I pressed record, is that you are also from Indiana, where my mother-in-law lives. And I think that you guys were connected somehow or worked together, right? Is that how the story goes?
Yep. We are both registered nurses. And we used to work together. And she was telling me, once she found out that my son was on the spectrum, was telling me about some of the amazing work that you do and connected us that way.
Oh, that's so nice. I love that so much. Yes. And I know you've taken Help Me Find My Voice, which is our one of our autism courses that we offer. And you took it a while ago. So I'm excited to hear about that. But can you tell us a little bit about you, your journey into the autism world, and let us know a little bit about that?
Sure. So, I live, like you said, here in Indiana. Been married to my husband, Bob, for about 15 years. We have a son. His name is Nico. He just turned 9 years old yesterday.
Wow.
And we love being outside. We love summer and fall, and now winter's coming, so we won't be outside as much.
Right.
We like to travel. We just like simple things, and having fun as a family. Nico was just after his first birthday, I realized he really wasn't speaking. Not only was he not speaking, he just wasn't making a whole lot of noise. He wasn't making a lot of sound. And so, I brought that up to the pediatrician, and it took a little while before doctors started to say, we need to have him evaluated to see if there's something else going on. A lot of times, boys, I am told that boys develop a little bit slower when it comes to speech. And so that's kind of the roadblock that I hit initially was, he's fine. Just wait. But eventually we got him evaled through our early intervention program here in Indiana. And we started there. So he had started speech therapy at about 18 months old. With them, then they added in occupational therapy for some sensory challenges that he had. And then he actually was diagnosed with autism just right around his 3rd birthday. And even though we saw it coming, it still was, kind of a gut punch, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But we hit it head on with therapies. My husband and I both agreed that, we would never regret having too much therapy. We would never regret trying too hard,
Mhm.
to help him succeed. And so we did a ton of therapy, ABA therapy, speech, OT. We did play therapy, you name it. We were there. But I have to say it really has paid off. It's paid off really well. He's doing really well.
That's great to hear. So when
Yeah.
he was 18 months and he started his early intervention, were they coming to your home to provide that therapy as an in-home? And did he make
Yeah.
progress during that time? I'm just always kind of curious what led you on then to thinking about, maybe we do need
Sure.
to, how did you hear about applied behavior analysis? I'm always kind of
Sure.
curious. Now,
Yeah.
social media and Facebook and, there's so many opinions out there about things. I always think it's got to be really hard for parents to navigate, what
Right.
direction do we take? What do we try? Does he enjoy this? What did that
Yes.
look like? So did he start making progress with the speech therapy at your home, or what did that look like?
You made a really good point. If you get information from everywhere, but it's not always good information. And then I felt like at the time it was hard to get good information. Like, who do you trust? And then the people that you do trust, for example, our pediatrician, once the evals started coming in, it was like, well, now what? And
Mhm.
oh, we'll go back to your pediatrician. Well, my pediatrician sent me here. So it just felt very confusing and just very lost. But yeah, the early interventions did come to our home. Did he make progress? It was, but it was slow and it was frustrating, because I felt like we were putting in the work and not really getting a whole lot in return.
Mhm.
I mean, the therapists were amazing. And looking back to see, every week they come into your home. We had a dog. I mean, they're like in your floor.
Yeah.
The dog's trying to get in the middle. I mean, they were absolutely amazing, but it was slow. And one of the therapists would always say, remember, it's progress, not perfection. Like, just keep moving forward. And so I kind of try to keep that in mind. But at one point, I was like, we need more. Like, we need more than just, I can't remember if they were here a whole hour, if it was just a half hour, I don't remember. But, I just felt like once a week isn't enough. And
Mhm.
he was just so little. And I felt like we have all this time. Like,
Mhm.
he's not in school and like we have time, like, let's fill it with like, something that's going to help him. So we did then reach out to do outpatient therapy as well.
Mhm.
So they would come to our home and then through our insurance, we would then do outpatient. We didn't know or hear about ABA until his diagnosis.
Okay.
And that was, like I said, right at the age of 3. We went to see a specialist. And I do want to say to parents now, if you're thinking about seeing a specialist, get on a wait list now.
Right.
I remember we were on a wait list. I want to say it was like 12 months. It was a long time. And that
Wow.
was important to me because, as we'd said, I am a registered nurse. So, all of my adult life, I'm used to getting directions from physicians. And like, that's how nurses work. We get our
Mhm.
orders from doctors. And, all this time I was putting my trust into therapists that were coming to my home, and not to discount them at all.
Yeah.
I feel like they were very knowledgeable and they knew what they were doing. But in my nurse brain, I needed to hear it from a doctor.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't settle until, I heard it from a specialist. And he actually was the one that said, you need to go home and you need to find quality ABA. Your child will do best if he can get, I want to say he said start off with maybe 12 to 15 hours of quality ABA. And so
Yeah.
that's how we ended up with ABA. Yeah.
So Nico was in early intervention, did you have, because I know in your bio, you said, which my heart was hurting for you, you said, like, I think you started a nonprofit, and I know you're going to talk about that, but you were having to leave different
Mhm.
community events because Nico was having some behavioral barriers or
Right.
meltdowns, was how you said it. So when you were in the
Yeah.
early intervention and Nico was kind of making progress and you liked the therapist, but you felt like there could be more, were you thinking in the back of your head, were you thinking as a parent autism, or because he was having some sensory needs, or because he was having some behavioral barriers to accessing like just community outings and things like that? Or what were your thoughts with that?
I really didn't know. So one thing that a lot of the therapists that came to our home would say is it's not autism because he's too social.
Oh.
And we even had a specialist come to our home to do an eval. I just thought, in our home setting is where he's going to be most comfortable. And she said herself, she didn't believe that it was autism. She said, most of the time when I come to homes, kids on the spectrum run away. And she's like, your son is greeting me at the door, wanting me to play cars with him.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a hard time. And that he was at the age of 2 then. And so between the age of 2 and 3, it was just kind of like, well, what's going on? And I mean, I had him like had an extensive hearing test done because I'm like, why is he not speaking? I didn't quite understand the sensory stuff at the time. One of the therapists said, does he spend a lot of time upside down? And I said, no. And we looked at him and he was like bent over looking through his legs. And she's like, that's upside down.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He does that a lot.
Right.
So he was getting sensory input. I just was like, he's being a kid, So yeah, I didn't quite know. I mean, I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't sure. And so to hear these professionals say like, oh, it's not autism. I was like, well, then what is it?
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure once you got the autism diagnosis, then it sounds like you're take action kind of person. So then you wanted to make sure that you were able to get him support, especially, the doctor said you should get ABA. So I know one of the things we were going to talk about is, how did you find an ABA provider for your son? I know that parents really struggle with that. And now, with insurance covering ABA, there are a lot more providers that are around. But I know for parents, not every provider, just like not every therapist is created equal. Parents really are struggling to say, like, number one, should we do ABA? Because there's a lot of opinions about that. And number two, if we do ABA, how do we find a provider that we feel good with? Because there are more and more providers cropping up. So what were your kind of next steps? So the doctor said, yes, your Nico does have autism. We recommend ABA. Were there a couple places in your area, or what was Indiana like at the time when you...
So we were lucky. There was one here in the town that we live in. Otherwise, the other one, there was one other in Northwest Indiana, and it was an hour one way or 45 minutes the other way. So location-wise kind of helped. But I wanted to talk too, just to parents. I mean, you're going to come across different barriers, and one of our biggest barrier in trying to get resources was, getting the order from the doctor that this is what we need. I came home and called our insurance to see who they would cover, and was instantly told that nothing with the diagnosis of autism would be covered. And
wow, that doesn't seem right.
No. And again, this was years ago. I don't think that can happen anymore. I think that things have since changed. But that was a huge, like, wait, what? Like, I thought getting a diagnosis is going to open more doors. But there are different insurance policies. The policy that we had at the time was a self-funded policy. I don't know if you're familiar with any. I had never heard of any of this. But they were at the time able to put different restrictions on just what they would cover. Now laws have changed, and like pre-existing conditions and those things aren't supposed to limit you. And I don't know. I'm not sure if that's truly how it is now or not. But at the time, that was the biggest barrier. I mean, I was only working like barely part-time, and had to go back full time to get coverage because I knew that now that this is what my son needed. So, which was nice because that's how I met your mother-in-law.
Right. And that's how we became connected.
That's right.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I ended up going with who our insurance then covered months later. And we were lucky, I agree, like you get different you hear different things, and some people absolutely do not like ABA, and they will, they feel that it changes their child, and I can give you my opinion. I can go on and on because it's done great things for us.
That's great.
I mean, it literally has changed our lives for the better. But with that being said, we were happy with our provider, but we were there for 5 years. And so, of course, there were things throughout those 5 years that didn't mesh, didn't gel, I didn't really care for. And I just say, speak up, and ask questions, and don't stop until you feel comfortable, because it's important to feel comfortable. And there are many different providers, and you have to trust who you're with. You have to feel comfortable.
Well, that's great that you're able to find somebody in your area. I have another, she's a speech therapist and also a mom to 2 children. One is autistic, one is not, but she lives in West Virginia. And at the time when her son was diagnosed, I know they maybe had a provider in their town. Deidre Darsh, she was on a previous episode of Autism Outreach, but she did have to drive farther because she did feel more comfortable with a provider that was farther away. So it was great just that you were able to find somebody in your geographical area. So then once Nico was diagnosed, then did you start with ABA pretty immediately once you got the insurance and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's wait lists. Again,
Right.
Everything in this world is waitlisted.
Yes. Yes. Especially now, right? With COVID, that's what's been so like, oh my goodness, parents are really, I know, having a hard time, and students and providers too, you know what I mean? Everything kind of switched, but okay. So then you started ABA. So then when did you take Help Me Find My Voice? How long had Nico been about in ABA before then you took our course?
Yeah. That's a good question too, because, having a medical background, I felt like I've always felt not in control, but kind of like I had a handle on the situation.
Yeah.
I kind of understood and I knew when to ask questions. ABA is a whole nother world. I mean, they have a whole nother language, a whole nother vocabulary. And, it can seem very intimidating. It's like a foreign language, you are in their world now. And actually at the time they were coming into our home, they did home services through ABA, which was great. Yeah. But again, can feel very intimidating, a little overwhelming. They're changing things. They want the child to be independent. I'll never forget one of the first things was they were going to help us teach him how to brush his teeth. And, all this time we've been using this little footstool for him to get up to the sink. And they were like, we're going to need you to get a different footstool. And I was like, why? Because he wasn't able to access it. It was too big for him. So instantly I was just like, it just was something that in my mind was like, oh, they're going to, come in and tell me I got to move stuff around. And so it just was, it can be very overwhelming, totally worth it, totally worth putting in all the energy and the extra time. But being able to take Help Me Find My Voice introduced me to some of that vocabulary. I felt like it put me on the same playing level as the therapist. I felt like I was able to understand communication with them. I didn't need them to like break it down to me in simpler terms. I mean, I just felt like we were equals almost. I mean, of course they're the professionals and, I get that, but I just felt more on their level. So it was very, very beneficial. It gave me a sense of confidence that I didn't have before I took that course.
Oh, I love that so much. Because we do in a couple of the modules, the first one we talk about just some of the vocabulary, what is a man, what is a tact, what is an echoic? And, it can just be really hard. And, now I think that ABA, and I don't know if you had as much of it, but now ABA does, and most states does include some parent training. But I always say too, the parent training, it's just hard to get like, in Help Me Find My Voice, we talk about some of the different terms. We talk about the assessments. We talk about kind of the vision of services. When you're doing parent training, oftentimes is about your specific child, which is great. And sometimes it can be hard to know all those things. So I love that it helped you feel more comfortable with the terms and just kind of the vision of what, ABA is. And
definitely. And like I said, just I felt like we were on the same playing field. I felt like we were on the same team. Like I wasn't an outsider that they had to, like I said, break things down to or explain a little bit better. I just felt like we were all working towards the same goal on the same team. It made me feel better about just confidence wise for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So his intervention, so tell us about so he did ABA and then did he go to preschool or what did that look like, him entering kind of the school,
Yeah.
school age realm? Did you have him evaluated at your local school district too when he turned
Mhm.
3 or, okay, can you tell us about
Yep.
that?
Yeah. So after when he aged out of early intervention, they sent us to the public school system
Hmm.
and he was initially evaluated there. And that was they offered like speech therapy, but I wanted him to be in this developmental preschool.
Hmm.
And so he qualified for that. Um, and that was helpful. I ended up, he was in there, gosh, I don't know, the developmental preschool. That was before ABA actually started because of
Oh,
the wait
okay.
list and insurance.
Right.
But he was there maybe a year before we started ABA. And then we ended up leaving the school system's preschool and going with ABA full time. And with that, we did like a typical preschool.
Oh,
And our ABA therapist went with him.
oh.
So he was around his typically developing peers.
Hmm.
And we did that, gosh, I don't know, maybe 2 years. Um, and then, yeah, we've done full-time ABA since the age of 4.
Hmm.
And what we would mix that between coming to our home and then going to the center full time. And I
Okay.
felt like, at the center, they ran it almost like a preschool. They had story time and circle time. And
Hmm.
so he was getting a lot of the preschool stuff through there as well.
Oh, that's
Um,
great. And I know that's a big decision because I don't have a whole lot of time to see private clients, but I see just a handful here that are like within 10 minutes of my house, to be honest. And the one family has a very young son and he's diagnosed with autism at age 3. And then they
mhm,
also got evaluated by the school district and they were going to do developmental preschool. And they started that, but they were also doing ABA. But then their
mhm.
son was very tired because he's very
Yeah,
little. And so they were
sure.
really struggling. And so they've decided to pump the brakes on the public school. And now they're
Mhm.
doing ABA. I see the child for private speech and he also gets private OT services. But I know that like I dialogue with them a lot because I'm in their home every week. So I know
Yeah,
that's a big decision and it's hard to know
yeah,
like, what do I do?
yeah,
His
for
ABA
sure.
provider also, does things like story time and group time. And I was just telling them, because I work 3 days a week in a school as a speech therapist too. Those are important things to try to
Mhm.
help your child, get ready for group work. And because those are, to me, that's really the joy of the public school setting is access to peers and access to
Yeah,
learning in a group. But then some
right,
kids really do need that one-on-one instruction to learn new skills. And so
right.
it's just hard. It's got to be hard as a parent to know, like, is
Yeah,
this the right choice? I mean, it's
yeah,
just hard, right? You're taking the data, you're analyzing it, right? Because you
yeah,
come from a healthcare background. So it sounds
right.
like you've done such a great job making
Oh,
those
thanks.
choices. So how old is
Thanks.
Nico now? And is he in
Mhm.
school now? Or talk to us about how he's doing.
Yeah, so like I said, he just turned 9 years old actually yesterday.
Oh, wow. Oh my
Um,
goodness. Happy
I
birthday,
know.
Nico.
He and just graduated from ABA.
Wow.
I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
They felt like he is to the point that he no longer needs intense ABA.
Hmm.
We're gonna do like some after school social groups through our ABA a little bit later on down the road.
Hmm.
Just kind of taking a pause, kind of letting things just simmer and see where we're at right now. But yeah, he's in school full time. He spends half of his day in his gen ed class and then half of his day with special ed
Okay.
in more of a restricted, environment.
Hmm.
But he is doing great. Um, he's in third grade. We actually
Wow.
didn't do kindergarten.
Okay.
In Indiana, kindergarten is not required. And
Oh,
so at that time, we chose to do another year of full-time ABA.
okay.
So this is actually just his third year in school. And his first year was rough. He's used to having his ABA para with him. So it took him a little time to kind of just get used to following, group instruction
Hmm.
and then COVID happened and we did a year of virtual learning last year, which was interesting.
Yes.
um, so yeah, he's doing really well now. He's back in public school, full time, and he's doing well, doing very
Oh,
well.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful that has that kind of mix. I didn't realize he was in third grade. Okay. So yeah, so I have a daughter who is in fifth grade and a daughter who is in second grade. So okay.
Aw,
And then my son
yeah.
he just turned 6. He just started kindergarten. But it has
Aw,
been so with COVID and,
yeah.
everybody's school district is different and that virtual learning time, for my husband, he really struggled because I was working,
Right.
so my district, I was running my exact same speech therapy schedule. And then my private practice had picked up a maternity leave during COVID. So I was on teletherapy full time
Oh, wow.
the whole week. And
Yeah.
my husband's in medical device sales. So he was homeschooling the children. And let me tell you, I don't want to go back to that. That was
No.
very, get your vaccines and wear your mask. That was very stressful. You know what I mean? For everybody.
Oh, I know.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. That was
Yes.
really, we just actually started having in-person Iep meetings again. I had my first one
Okay.
this year and I was
Oh.
like, they were like, it's in person. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's in
Right.
person. Like we're doing, because a lot of parents have just opted for
Yeah.
virtual. Everything seems so easy virtually now to me.
Right.
I don't mind virtual, but
Right. I agree. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So that's amazing
Yeah.
that he's doing so well. So
Yeah.
I know we unpacked a lot of information, but if you were talking to a parent, and well, it said do you do a little bit of advocating for parents or you help with parents?
Mhm.
What is the one thing that you think is most important when parents get that autism diagnosis? Because I would imagine some parents I know seem like they might be a little surprised by the diagnosis. And then I know other parents have been on a wait list and they're like, okay,
Mhm.
this is what we think it is. We want to make sure we just
Sure.
get our child the support that they need. But what do you think is the
Right.
number one most important thing when parents get that diagnosis?
I would definitely say that advocating is hard, but always worth it. Your child is depending on you. Your child is depending on you to do the work, to call the insurance, follow up with the insurance. It's roadblock after roadblock, but you have to keep pushing forward. You have to.
Mhm.
Your child is depending on you, and only you can do it for them. So whether that's therapy, whether that is, just getting into a play group, I mean, just you have to figure out what works best for your family and keep moving forward to get it done. And it can feel very isolating. It can feel like, nobody can point you in the right direction, but there are services out there and there is help out there. You have to seek it out. You have to ask for help and just keep pushing forward. Advocating is hard. You feel like a lot of times you're just spinning your wheels. I mean, we get busy. We don't have time to sit on hold with the insurance and then call them
Mhm.
back. And,
Right.
But it will always be worth it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you have started a nonprofit. Can you tell us a little bit
Mhm.
about that and kind of what you're
Sure.
doing with that? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So, over the years, we've met many just wonderful resources, people, therapists, providers. And it started with our ABA therapy kind of asking, do you mind talking to this new mom? They're unsure about ABA. And I've done that several times. And it's been a lot of like, oh, have you tried, this person or have you, reached this office or tried this? So I just felt like at some point, like we needed to put all these resources together because I felt like we were doing a lot of sharing. And, if I had to seek it out and find it, and then why not make it easier for the next person to find that same piece of information? So there's a little bit of resources. Also, just like we had talked about Nico, like feeling overwhelmed and leaving birthday parties
Mhm.
early due to overstimulation, leaving the splash pad in parks because little girls were screaming and it was just too much for him. I just wanted to find an environment for him to play in, just a non-judgmental, it's okay that he's covering his ears or maybe he's melting down and we don't need everybody staring at us. So I just wanted to just create this special village. Like, can't we just all come together? And so we did. We created a nonprofit called Uniquely Nico, and we raised money to just host fun play dates. We try to do a couple a month, and we, invite our peers. And another roadblock that I would come across is I would hear families say, my son took the boys to the movies, but, me and our daughter, we had to stay back because it was just too loud for her. And I, again, just felt like, let's create this environment that the whole family can come, that we're not separated. So we raise money to host these fun events. And then we end up doing some scholarship awards, some scholarships a couple times a year that help with just out-of-pocket costs with insurance. A lot of times you have to meet your deductible or your out-of-pocket max, which is several $1,000s. And so that is hard for families. And so this kind of helps alleviate some of that burden.
Oh, that's nice. And I love that idea of families being able to do things together, because I've been in the field 20 years. So, I don't have a child with autism, but I am friends with a lot of people and have had many conversations with parents of the same thing. Like, we have to split up because, so-and-so, it's hard for them to do that. And I think it's so dependent on where you live, because, here in Ohio, and especially pre-COVID times, we would have sensory friendly story times and sensory friendly, like you're talking about, movies and, even Playhouse Square down in Cleveland would have shows. And I think that has to be really comforting for families to be able just to do things that other people completely take for granted, that you're doing something together as a shared family event. So I think that's so wonderful, because that can feel, I can imagine how isolating that would be for parents to feel.
For sure.
That way. So that's really great. So where can people find out more about you and your work?
So our website is just uniquelynico.com. We're also on social media. We're very active on Facebook and Instagram. We're very present there.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Rebecca, for coming on. It was really nice to meet you. And I'm so glad that you helped me find my voice and that it was helpful. And it sounds like you're doing such great work. And Nico is, oh my goodness, doing so great. Yeah,
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Autism Outreach. If you enjoyed the show today, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode full of actionable strategies you can use in your therapy room. Write a review too. That would mean so much to me. I always love hearing from you. Have a specific topic that you want included on a future show? Reach out over on Instagram, ABA Speech by Rose, or visit me at www.abaspeech.org.